During one of my many expeditions down here in the depths seeking out any potential oddities worthy enough of dedicating an atrocious amount of my free time scratching my head over, I just so happened to come across something that effortlessly satisfied those conditions. Within close proximity of the great abandoned central mine lies an abandoned Yiga outpost, except something is very clearly off about this place. Toppled support beams, fence lines, and shelves paired together with massive fallen boulders and scattered piles of debris strewn about the area paints an eerie picture of something gone incredibly and horribly wrong. This is a scene that very loudly screams ambush in my personal opinion, as if whatever tragedy that happened here was something that the Yiga were woefully underprepared for or they weren't expecting it to happen at all. However, upon reading the tattered Yiga notebook that can be found here, you might be led to believe otherwise and that the demolished state of this outpost was all part of their plan as the notebook states. According to Koga, this location will be destroyed. Glory to Master Koga. Which has actually turned out to be an extremely misleading message after I spent some extra time looking much deeper into the mysterious fate of this abandoned Yiga outpost. To begin our investigation, first I'd like to point out a few key details about this abandoned outpost along with some additional visual observations that we can make about it. Then we'll compare the physical state of this inactive outpost with the other more active outposts. The first thing that we notice about this place is how obviously destroyed it is. But was this destruction caused by the Yiga following orders from Koga or something else entirely? Well, let's just say that it certainly doesn't appear to be intentionally done by the Yiga themselves because of a few crucial reasons. For starters, all of the fencing surrounding this outpost has been pushed outwards, as if a massive shockwave knocked them over from within. This theory of a shockwave or something similar to one occurring does actually track because of the giant boulder that we can find that has clearly fallen and landed here as a result of some sort of tremor or disturbance. The next thing that we notice is how the majority of the lantern lights here have gone out, but not all of them. The reason for this is most likely because while it may be true that this outpost has been officially abandoned, it can still serve as a location in which the Yiga clan can store their supplies. The main function and purpose of a Yiga outpost is to act as a relay, which means that they exist to facilitate the safe traversal of the depths. So, having areas in which to store supplies for any wandering Yiga member to come across on their travels is very important. The fact that some but not all of the lights here have gone out, as well as the continued existence of supply crates here, leads me to believe that this place still functions as a relay, just without the personnel to maintain it. Before you learn the ability auto build, Master Koga and his goons were at the great abandoned central mine, which is only just a short distance away. So it wouldn't surprise me if this abandoned outpost was still seeing some use by his group specifically while they were in the area. Although this outpost might seem like it hasn't been abandoned for very long, there's a few details about it that would actually suggest otherwise. One detail of which I'll reveal a little bit later, but what I would like to mention right now is the fact that the notebook here looks pretty weathered. When compared side by side to the other notebooks found in much more active outposts, the one from the abandoned outpost is in much worse condition. At the time the message within this notebook was written, it was completely legible and has since become difficult to read over time, or because it might have been soiled during the chaotic event that transpired here. The reason why I'm so sure of this is because of the evidence that can be found elsewhere through messages left in other notebooks, potentially by the very same people who may have once been stationed at this now abandoned outpost and have since been relocated after whatever it was that transpired here. This is where the mystery of the abandoned outpost begins to make perfect sense, so let's get right into it, shall we? There are 3 active outposts in total that contain clues as to what on earth is going on with the abandoned outpost. The first active outpost that we'll be visiting outright tells us exactly what happened in the notebook that can be found here. Important notice, after the disaster in Hyrule Field, our bases face yet another threat. You must watch out for a large one-eyed four-legged animal. These terrifying beasts are ravenous and ready to swallow anything and everything in their vicinity. According to this notebook, it seems pretty clear that the abandoned outpost was attacked by a wandering fox. To back this up even further, the only Yiga outpost that exists in the entirety of the Hyrule Field region is the abandoned one. And what else do we find in this specific region? Not 1, not 2, but 4 roaming foxes. And to make things even worse, this abandoned outpost is sandwiched directly between 2 fox nests that were uncomfortably close by. In comparison to literally any other Yiga outpost found down here and how they were all constructed, this one in particular is quite different, but there's actually a very good reason for why that is. If we travel to the second and third active outposts that I mentioned earlier that still contain clues, the reason why the abandoned outpost was built the way that it was and so differently from the rest begins to make perfect sense. Base Construction Manual Volume 1. Relay bases must be built to facilitate safe and effective navigation of the depths. When choosing a site for a base, consider locations where the terrain can be used to defend against monsters. Number 1. Choose a high location that monsters can't reach. Construction may be difficult, but the protection will be worth the effort. Number 2. Create a sandbank surrounded by water. Most monsters can't swim. And number 3. When building on a flat terrain is unavoidable, sufficiently fortify defenses with barricades. Taking absolutely none of their own construction manual's advice into account, the abandoned outpost was built upon an awkward, cramped, and difficult to defend portion of flat terrain without even a single barricade to assist in bolstering their fence line. But did they actually ignore their own advice, or is something else at play here? Well, if we quickly make our way on over to the third and final active outpost that contains the biggest clue of them all, you'll probably begin to see where I'm going with this. Base Construction Manual Volume 2. All bases should follow the operation guidelines below to ensure the quick and flexible deployment of personnel. Number 1. Secure all treasure and valuables such as crystallized charges in the storehouse. Number 2. Select one person to ensure that the storehouse is thoroughly sealed and protected at all times. And number 3. If the storehouse is threatened, other personnel must immediately report to engage in hostilities. See Volume 1 for information about base placement. The entirety of Volume 2 makes it very clear to us the importance of maintaining each and every storehouse located at every outpost. But the abandoned outpost doesn't actually have a storehouse. Are you beginning to see what's really going on here? Yep, this outpost is actually the very first of its kind to have ever been built down here in the depths, which perfectly explains the lack of strategic placement, the absence of defenses, the missing storehouse, and even the condition in which we find the notebook that was left behind here. This outpost was most likely caught off guard by a rampaging Frox and had next to nothing in the way of defending themselves from it. So instead of following orders and dismantling this poorly built outpost, they were unexpectedly attacked before it could happen, thus explaining why this was called a disaster in another notebook that recounted this devastating attack. The tattered notebook here looks the way that it does now simply due to prolonged inactivity and age, since this is historically speaking the oldest outpost that currently exists. Or I guess it could have also been simply damaged during the chaos of the ambush itself. Following the attack, volumes 1 and 2 of their construction manuals were hastily written as a result of lessons learned in the art of not being stupid when it comes to building their bases within what is essentially a gigantic monster-spawning hellhole. And now, at long last, the mystery surrounding this peculiar little location begins to dissipate. Well, it looks like my work here is all wrapped up, so it's about time I continued my search for the next mind-numbingly boring thing to overly analyze like a psychopath. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll just be on my way. Huh? Voice memories? You're saying that the ones with Koga might actually prove all of this wrong? Oh, really now? We'll see about that.
You want a piece?
After Link thoroughly kicks Master Koga's potassium in Breath of the Wild, he falls down a giant chasm that ends up leaving him completely stranded and all alone in the darkness of the depths. Voice Memory 14 details the moment leading up to Master Koga finally reuniting with the Yiga clan after wandering aimlessly throughout the depths for quite some time. After approaching the abandoned Gerudo mines, he picks up on the scent of 5-day-old bananas, which just so happens to be his favorite, implying that the members of the Yiga clan were attempting to find Koga by luring him in. You could say that this location might have been the very first outpost, but Voice Memory 15 clarifies that the Yiga clan didn't actually bring anything else with them, only bananas, suggesting that they had only just arrived, so this was merely just a rendezvous point for now and nothing more. Voice Memory 20 is where things start to become rather interesting, since Koga implies that the very first outpost to be built down here will be this one, which is situated fairly close to the hole in the ceiling that Koga initially fell from. At first glance, you might assume this to be the case, since it would absolutely make a lot of sense that this particular outpost would be the very first one to be built, given its close proximity to the chasm attached to the headquarters up on the surface. However, this voice memory is simply Master Koga making a mental note to eventually have one built in this location. In fact, Koga makes similar mental notes of other ideal locations for an outpost to eventually be built as he continues exploring the depths, so the search continues. In number 39, Koga discovers the Great Abandoned Central Mine, which houses the construct that teaches auto-build, a very useful ability that he's been searching for quite some time. So he leaves a couple of his goons here to try and figure out how to gain access to it. Number 40 brings us just up the hill to the northeast, where Koga receives information that Ganondorf has officially returned. And number 41 takes us to the west, where the secret spring of revival is. In his his haste to meet with the Demon King as soon as possible, an excited Master Koga relaxes in the spring's waters while stating that he had just told the Yiga clan where and how to build the outpost. Given the significance of the general area in which all three of these voice memories take place, along with his sense of urgency to establish an outpost right away, you would think that this area, close to auto build, would be the ideal location to build the very first Yiga outpost. And you'd be right.
Not too shabby.
I really hope that you've enjoyed my analysis of this abandoned Yiga outpost, and that it just goes to show you that even the most seemingly mundane and lifeless things in these games can potentially contain a fully thought out and meticulously planned intention behind them. An absolutely massive thank you goes out to my Hero Shade Tier YouTube members and patrons whose glorious names are now on the screen. You are all Bonafide legends. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed yourself, there's much more to come in the future, so please subscribe and stick around for another bite of Zelda lore from Gossip Geist.